So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our first of which we hope will be many civic engagements. My name is Sal Montero, and I will be a facilitator for this evening for Voice to Empower, which is brought to you by Gathered Together, United as One. We are gathered here today to open up a space for civic leaders, community leaders, and community members to discuss the barriers to civic engagement and civic participation. I will now, before we start, I just want to say welcome again to everyone that's here. I hope everyone enjoyed the beautiful weather that was out here today. Spring is here. So with that feeling of spring in the air, I hope we can get this night started and have some real good engagement. But before we start, I just want to say something real quick. And this is from the author Ken Budigan. It's called From Violence to Wholeness. Nonviolence in civic engagement is a process of seeing and challenging patterns of violence and injustice. To do this well, we need each other. We need communities of people who are seeking to transform their own violence and violence around them. We need safe space to reflect on this process with others. We need allies with whom we can practice these methods and people with whom we can debrief. We need companions when we take nonviolent and civic engagement action. In general, nonviolence and civic engagement is not a solitary activity. That is from Ken Budigan, From Violence to Wholeness. So before we start, we have a few ground rules to make this an enjoyable moment, to make this work, to make this flow, so that everyone else can hear their voice. So there are a couple of guidelines that I just want to throw out there for everyone to know. This will be recorded. So I just want to let everybody know, hope you feel safe. This will be recorded. Please be on time. Obviously, I think we did real good with the on-time piece. Please remove any outside distractions. Turn off all your cell phones and unrelated electronics. It's very important that as we do this, that you own your feelings and experiences. In this virtual panel, the use of you may be interpreted as offering advice or an interpretation of someone else's experiences. Stay within the I position at all times. Try that to stay, think about you. Remember to share the floor. Respect is an integral part of each group. Please respect others' opinions, emotions, and experiences. Refrain from talking while others are speaking. Please use the raise your hand feature. We have some great technicians that will help guide us through this process. I'm pretty sure after almost 10 months of Zoom, all of us are zoomed out, but we have a great panel. We have a great technician behind us. So obviously, if we've been on Zoom, we know that there can be some technical difficulties. There might be some mishaps, but please bear with us as we go through this process. And again, this event will be recorded. I will now introduce the founder and the CEO, Ms. Alexandra Gonzalez.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you all for coming to Voice to Empower. My name is Alexandra Gonzalez. I am the founder and CEO of Gathered Together, United as One, GTUA1. Our nonprofit is geared towards unsheltered and at-risk individuals. Our goal is to provide basic needs opportunities and supportive services where people with the same commonalities can gather together and achieve goals. We aim to create a safe, supportive, resourceful, and transparent space to equip individuals and families with the necessary skills and tools to improve their socioeconomic status. Our purpose is to decrease human suffering, removing barriers to care, and providing economic opportunities to increase our human potential. Our goal for this event is to build community through relationships. So as a state, we can begin to grow together and heal from our past hurts and disparities. This is how we begin to break barriers, so we may start to focus on the solutions to create a better future for every Rhode Islander. Before we begin, I'd like to start by acknowledging the sponsors of this event, the Rhode Island Humanities Council. We would love to thank you for your support for this project. Ron Resmini, Grossmont, Rhode Island, John Lombardi, Roots to Empower, Phillip A.K., Melissa Flaherty, Street Sites, the May Organization for the Homeless, and the George Wally Center. Now, I'd like to give you a little bit of GTUA1's impact that we've actually had on this community, and a little bit about why I started doing this work. We have housed 2 people during COVID-19. We have also placed over 20 individuals in hotels during our recent winter storms. On Christmas Eve, we walked the streets of Pawtucket and Providence with 50 backpacks full of items and 40 handmade personalized Christmas cards. We have provided over 100 bags of toiletries and over 200 meals, as well as 2 successful giveaways. And this is only since our incorporation in December of 2020. Let me tell you a little bit about why I started this work. As a child, I grew up in a dysfunctional family. My mother was adopted, so I've always longed to be a part of a family or a community that is filled with love and acceptance. Through my own life struggles and my mother being incarcerated and my significant other passing away, I was forced into homelessness. It was my only option, and I didn't really have one besides that. So my only option was just to fight through it and try to figure things out. And there was never a way for me.
I think you muted yourself, Alex.
Sorry, thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
There was no support systems to help place me or provide me with services unless I was using or had a charge. In 2013, I decided that if I stayed in Rhode Island, I wouldn't get the help I deserved or be able to maintain my sobriety. So I arranged to move to Colorado, where there I was easily helped. While there are no barriers in Colorado like they exist in Rhode Island, I was very easily able to navigate through the systems and learn how to connect to services. Upon coming home, I was able to secure stable housing in less than 6 months, only because of the toolbox I developed. Realizing how broken our system here is and how we are set up to fail, I knew there was only one thing I could do: change it. What I've realized is that it isn't just me who feels this way. In fact, there are many of us here in Rhode Island that feel like they are just existing. Feel like they are forced to just figure it out. I don't want anyone to ever feel like they just have to exist or like they just have to figure it out. I want us to feel loved, appreciated, cared, connected, and accomplished. So tonight, I invite our community as a whole to learn from our civic leaders and our community members. This is an opportunity to establish a connection between the now and our future for success. We need to learn to accept and support each other while they're in transition, because we are all human and we all go through transition. Without a culture of understanding that these transitions are necessary for our community members to flourish while feeling like they're a part of a community, these problems will continue. Today, we can take the first step by setting a safe place so that we may create lasting relationships and open lines of communication that bring us together to achieve a new pathway to systematic change. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex. Thank you for all your hard work. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your honesty, for speaking out. You definitely are my hero. And we need more people like you. We need more stories like you, like yours. So I want to take this time to introduce our great panel. So happy for you to be here, to take your time out of your busy day to be here. obviously you realize how important this is in civic engagement. So we appreciate and respect you for being here. We have Miss Senator Tiara Mack, and they're going to introduce themselves after. We have State Representative Mr. John J. Lombardi. We have Miss Central Falls City Council, Miss Jessica Vega. And we have the former Director of Common Cause Rhode Island, Mr. Phillip West Jr. So people, we'll start with Miss Tiara Mack. Can you please just introduce yourself, your title, and a little bit about yourself, what you do here?
Hi, thanks, Sal. My name is Tiara Mack, and I represent parts of Providence, East Side, Mount Hope, Washington Park, and Southside Providence. And I'm excited to be able to join this this panel. And I was able to have a conversation with Alex a few weeks ago. And I'm really excited to be a part of this work.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Mr. John Lombardi.
Thank you, sir. How are you? Can you hear me?
Well.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Everyone? Oh, good.
Yep.
So first of all, I want a little bit of a thank you to Alex, because she's going to be a great lawyer someday. I just hope that she gets that heat under her seat and she does what she's got to do. I think she's got a great story. So I represent Federal Hill, half of Oneyville, Main Avenue, parts of a little bit of Academy, down up to Davis Park and back onto Federal Hill. So a little bit about me. I lost my parents very young. I didn't know if I was going to go to jail or do what I had to do, but I lived with a grandmother that didn't speak English. We lived on food stamps. It was a tough life, and I had to make a decision. Do I want to go to school, or do I want to, end up in jail, dead, drug addict, alcoholic, who knows? But I think I made the right choice, and that's why I'm here to let you know that there are people like us that you may think is something else. I may look like an old white man, but I've got more in common with the minority community than you can imagine. Again, we didn't speak English at home. We lived on food stamps. We lived on welfare cheese, welfare heat, welfare food, welfare clothing. So that's what I'm all about. So thank you, Alex, for putting this together, and everyone else. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Lombardi, and we're so glad you chose school and not the streets, bro.
Thank you.
Appreciate that, man. All right. Next, we have the lovely Miss from Central Falls City Council, Jessica Vega. And Jessica, just to let you know, I got props for Central Falls. This week started today. We started a 40-hour nonviolence training with the Central Falls Police Department. So that's great. And thank you for what you do also. So we'll let you introduce yourself.
Well, thank you so much, Sal, for the training, and also Alex for inviting me here today. My name is Jessica Vega. I am the council president for Central Falls, and also someone who's really passionate about civic engagement. I know, Sal, you opened up with a quote about it being, what was the term you used?
It's not a solitary.
I think it was almost like an assault on the community when we don't know exactly what our rights are, which is absolutely true. The little ignorance isn't bliss, as we see folks who are empowered, even though so much work was done to get Biden elected in office through Stacey Abrams, her big push in Georgia. We're also seeing the backlash of that, of folks who are in these positions of power, slowly dismantling people's ability to go out and vote, making it more challenging, moving the times, getting rid of the mail ballots as much as possible. So this is why civic engagement is so important, because once you have knowledge of what's being done to you, then it's not as easy for people to turn away and not do something about it. So I'm really excited to have this conversation and look forward to sharing this space with so many other folks that I admire here. So thank you.
Thank you again, Ms. Jessica. And last but not least, we have Mr. Phillip West Jr., former director of the Common Cause of Rhode Island. The microphone is yours.
I actually didn't think I was supposed to speak tonight. I think I'm the oldest person on the call. As I look at the other faces here, you all look much younger. I'm 79. But I've been trying to make a difference since the 1960s in Brooklyn. And I've always seen that corruption in government and abuse of police powers, abuse of real estate, realtors' powers, all those things go together. And the people who always lose, or most of the people who lose, are people of color. And it has always stuck in my craw. And it has been the source of the main motivation of my life. So I'm honored to be with all of you, and I'm really here to listen tonight, not to say very much, but it's thanks to Alex for getting a bunch of us together, and thanks to all of you for what you do every day.
Thank you, sir. And you're not old. You're just older than us. All right? Looking sharp over there. All right. So let's plow right ahead. This is looking good. So now we're gonna take some questions from our community leaders to the civic leaders. We're gonna take maybe a minute to let our civic leaders introduce themselves from the community. And we have 32 people on here, so this is great. So are we switching over, Alex, to our community leaders?
Yeah, so what I would like now is if we can all just, the panelists can introduce themselves very briefly before we begin questions.
I'll start to help the process. My name is Jerison Aston Style. I'm from Pawtucket and Johnston, and very happy to be here. I have been helping to support GTUA1 as well as do a lot of youth leadership development with the George Wiley Center and a couple of other organizations. My primary interest is trying to understand the youth perspective and bring it into these spaces. So I'm happy to be here. And yeah, I'll just pass it on to whoever wants to go next.
Yeah, I can go next. So my name is Phillip Arkansolari. I was born and raised here in Providence. I'm a business strategist, keynote speaker. I invest in real estate. Before I did all of that, I pretty much, growing up, it was pretty rough for me. I came from, drug dealing, being into gangs and all types of things like that. Fortunately, I was able to change my life around, go to college, get a degree, start a business, and get into real estate. And that's a little bit of background about me.
All right, thank you, sir. Next up, we have Miss Wanda Brown.
Yeah, I was about to hit the mic. I felt like my name was coming. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the call. Sal, thanks for your sense of humor, because the work is serious, but we don't have to be so serious about getting it done. Right. A little bit about me. Right now, I currently work for College Unbound as a case manager for the prison program that we have, and also for the college in general. My background is in substance abuse. I've been working in the field of substance abuse for about 27 years, so I have a wealth of knowledge. We're trying to help people put their lives back together, become responsible, productive members of this society. I'm grateful to be on the call. I love the work that Alex is doing, and I'm super excited about being here with you all this evening.
Thank you, Miss Wanda. Always a pleasure. And we have Mr. James Montero. No relation, but same community. How you doing, bro?
No, man. Them islands are small, Sal. Them islands are very small, so you never know. James Montero, dropped out of school in the 8th grade, spent the next 20 years of my life incarcerated up and down the East Coast. First time incarcerated was done. Nothing to stand on upon release but an 8th grade education. Always in and out of prison. Last time incarcerated, Baltimore, Maryland. Went back to school, got my GED, associate's degree, and upon release, I received my bachelor's from Roger Williams University. Jess, shout out. In a year and a half. I pretty much haven't had to look back since. Since then, I have created the Billy Taylor House, which is in the Mount Hope neighborhood next door to Mrs. Mack. I've created the Reentry Campus program, and we help currently and formerly incarcerated people finish the post-secondary education they started behind prison walls once they're released. On the national level, I work with John Legend's Free America campaign, Just Leadership USA, and right now we're doing stuff for Ascendium and I forget what other foundation there is, but that's pretty much it in a nutshell for me. Thank you.
Thank you, James. One of my big brothers from the community, known him my whole life. Next, we have Camilo Viveras, community organizer, executive director of the George Wiley Center, recipient of the Red Bandana Award and co-founder of Popular Praxis. Can you explain what the Red Bandana Award is real quick before you...
Sure, yeah, the Red Bandana. I got a little echo going, excuse me, but so yeah, Richard Walton was a board member of the George Wiley Center, and he used to wear a red bandana, and that was a symbol of the working class, of non-capitalist economic situation. So every year, in memory of Richard, an award ceremony takes place where they bestow activists with this red bandana in memory of Richard, who was a longtime community activist. And it's a real privilege to be here with everybody. You know, I like that right in the title, we're talking about creating more unity because we're going to need more collective power, right? All of us have seen a lot of pain through this pandemic, and all of us have seen oppression getting heavier in our communities, despite the billions and billions of dollars that has been allocated through the federal government, right? So we know the myth of scarcity has been broken, right? Austerity, they're not going to fool us anymore, pretend that there's no money in the government, that we're broke. We know that's a lie, but it's going to take us all to get together to make sure that money gets into the right places to save our neighbors, to save our family members and our friends. So I'm glad we're all here today, have political leaders that I have a lot of respect for. And I'm excited to plot and plan together so we can make sure we don't keep on getting laughed at all the way to the bank, right? While we are having our loved ones dying in the streets.
Thank you for that, sir. Appreciate you being here. Next, we have Mr. Michael Shepard.
We can't hear you, Phil.
Oh, sorry.
I feel like...
You got it?
First of all, I want to start off by saying thank you so much, Alex, for inviting me to be a part of this this conference call. And I feel like the small guy with such an illustrious crowd that I'm with. And I don't have stories such as other people, but I can say I've been in Rhode Island most of my life. I'm a military brat. I am newly appointed pastor of Christ Church of Deliverance on Lockwood Street. And again, as everyone has shared, I'm just here to see things get done well, but pretty expeditiously because people are waiting for change. And that's all I really have to share.
Thank you, Mr. Michael. Next up, we have my sister Tiara, Mr. Tiara Battle, founder of Roots to Empower, community organizer. CFO, can we make sure everyone's thing is muted, right? I'm going to be clear so we can hear everyone. Mr. Tiara Battle, founder of Roots to Empower.
Hi, everyone.
Community organizer and CFO of Gather Together as One and board of director of CAP.
Well, Sal, I think you said it all. Yeah, so I'm the founder of Roots to Empower, an agriculture small business training program here in Pawtucket, and I'm also the CFO of Gather Together as One. So I'm the person behind the scenes, kind of helping Alex address the homelessness here in Pawtucket, in Providence. So that's who I am.
Nice, thank you for being here. Mr. Steve Alkis.
Hey. I'm Steve Alquist. I'm with Uprise Rhode Island. I'm a reporter. I'm really pleased to be here with some really astounding people I really love and admire. And love to cover when I write. So thank you.
Right. And also a recipient of the Red Bandana Award.
Yeah, same day as same day as
yeah. And we appreciate all your writing and being involved in the community and keeping us updated and having the courage to ask the tough questions. Appreciate that. All right. Is that everybody? Oh, we also have, she's going to stay in the cut because she's doing a lot of technical work, but we just have to respect, Increase your Murray. I know you don't want to say much, but just you have to say something.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Hi, everyone. And I want to say happy spring. I was very happy with the weather today. I just have to pin that out there. But yeah, my name's Anquasia Murray, and I consider myself a scientist by day and philanthropist by night. I'm a first-year PhD student studying Alzheimer's disease. And I am the founder and CEO of the Autumn Rise Foundation. It's a women-centered nonprofit based out of Rochester, New York. And I am the executive director of Gather Together United as One. So I met Alex about a year ago, and she told me about her vision for GTUA1, and I've just been helping her bring it to life.
Thank you. Thank you for all that you do. I think we have maybe a couple more people. Is Lamar Powell in the house? Okay, Lamar.
We can go back to him. He should be on soon.
All right. I want to make sure I didn't miss anyone. Is Miss Wilma Smith on? No. Okay. So, all right.
She's there. She's
okay,
there.
Okay, I can only see so many fair amount of people on my screen. So while we're waiting for that, Miss Miranda Grundy.
Hi everyone. I'm just really honored to be here because I came across Alex through some work and she invited me to be on this panel, but there's a ton more, way more accomplished people on this call than me. But I will say that I hope I can offer some of the youth perspective today. I work for an organization that does reentry support services for people returning to society from prison. So I also do a lot of criminal justice policy organizing around different issues with formerly incarcerated populations. Our biggest focus right now being a fight to end the use of long-term solitary confinement in Rhode Island, and maybe in an ideal world be able to close a building of the ACI and reinvest that money into at-risk communities in Rhode Island. So that's a little bit about me, but I'm just really happy to be here, learning a lot myself this year about the process of pushing for a bill, pushing for legislation, what that looks like, and just getting more civically involved in a bigger way than I ever have before as a Rhode Islander. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, and thank you for all that you do. Miss Monica Huertas. I hope I said that right. Miss Monica.
Hello. Yes, you did say it right. Thank you. I just turned my camera on real quick. The kids are running around. Thank you, everybody. Good afternoon. Well, it's almost nighttime, but hello. My name is Monica Huertas, and I am an environmental justice organizer here in Washington Park and South Side. I am the executive director of the People's Port Authority, and I've been organizing about 5 years now in the Port of Providence to stop the construction of liquefied natural gas in other facilities that have tons of toxic pollutants here in the port. I met Alexandra about a couple months ago, and she invited me after hearing my story. I grew up basically in the city of Providence between Travelers Aid and a really bad shelter that used to be called Welcome Arnold. I don't know folks who can remember Welcome Arnold, but it was up there in Cranston, right next to the jail. And so I grew up living there as a teenager. So imagine from the age about 12 to about 16, well, 10 to like 16. Anyways, and so I'm very glad to be here and happy to be amongst an extraordinary group of people. Thank you.
Thank you also. Take care of the kids back there. Make sure. All right. Is Mr. Carlos Lopez on? All right. We'll come back to Carlos.
He's day 2.
Okay, day 2. I'm sorry. But I do see Miss Wilma Smith. Miss Wilma Smith, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Wilma. I'm also with Gather Together United as One as the vice president. I met Alex when we were both working with the coalition's speaking program. We both experienced homelessness. I experienced homelessness as a youth aging out of the system and then again later in life. So this is very near and dear to me to be a part of the organization and to be fighting for the cause. I also sit on the board of the Pawtucket Central Falls Development Corporation, which I've been on for about 8 years now. It's an organization in the Pawtucket Central Falls area that builds affordable and low-income housing for individuals.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that, Ms. Wilma. So now I want to make sure, is that everyone? Did everyone get to introduce themselves, or am I missing anyone? Again, I can only see a certain amount of, everyone's good? Thumbs up, Alex? All right, appreciate it. So we're making good time here. We actually are on schedule.
We're just trying to figure out the technical difficulty with the live for Facebook. So that's why I was sorry about that.
That's all right, as long as we can see each other here. So what is civic engagement? What does that mean? Civics is a study of the rights and obligations of citizens in society. The term derives from the Latin word civics, meaning relating to a citizen, which derives from the Latin word civic, meaning citizen. The term relates to behavior affecting other citizens, particular in the context of urban development. So that is what civic engagement is. But what is civic participation, right? How do we take this education and participate in it? Civic engagement or civic participation is any individual or group activity addressing issues of public concern. Civic engagement includes communities working together or individuals working alone in both political and non-political actions to protect public values or make a change in a community. So there's a little education for us, right? So now what we're going to do, how's everybody feeling? Thumbs up? Everybody feeling good? Thumbs up? High five? Virtual high five, everyone? All right, looks good, looks great. So now we're going to have some questions and feedback from our community. So we're going to let our technical people put us in the place that we need to be. Is that correct? Or is we're going to do this just as?
That's correct. We're going to set it up so that the civic leaders are up in front of the screen, and then we'll have the community leaders that are asking questions pop in so everyone can watch.
Okay.
So while they're doing that, basically what I would like to, just express upon the community is that, as a kid, nobody told me what my social security card meant, how I was supposed to operate in a community, what the mayor did, what the governor did, how he could help me. We would see these people when there was like a shooting or something bad going on. Every now and again, there'd be something good. I think in the most recent past, the thing I could think of is Lamont talking about, guns down and gloves up. That's the things I'd like to see. I've also realized that if Gina Raimondo won the governor's race by 5% in her race, and the Black and brown community alone is 5%, 6%, what that means to me is that we have the power to sway not only any vote, but we have the power to give the power back to the people. But I believe that starts off with education and, how do we do that? How do we operate in this community? And we have to remember that they're there representing us, but let's go to them with things that aren't just problems, that aren't just chaos. Let's just build relationships. Let's understand where they're coming from, because we want to be able to support them as well. I think it's really important that we continue to support Jessica, and we continue to support John, and we continue to support Tiara, and because our voices are who they're actually supporting, right? So sometimes I think people think, hey, formerly incarcerated don't vote, they don't care, But it's not that they don't care. It's not that they don't vote. I mean, they don't vote, but it's because nobody educates them or takes the time to sit to talk to them about those, issues. And I think that right now we're doing that. So I just want to thank everybody again for coming together today, because it's going to be awesome. So thanks.
Right. May I say something about that?
Absolutely.
May I say something about that?
100%.
Yeah. So first of all, because you were incarcerated, you can still vote. We changed that law in 2010. Unless you're, under wraps and in prison, that's the only time you can't vote, because you kind of lose whatever you've got. For the record, Mr. Montero, you got 3 people on the panel that I think you got to get rid of. One is James Montero, the other is Mike Shepard, and the other is the Oracle of Truth, Steve Alquist, because they're nothing but trouble, those 3 guys. And they got listen, Sal, I'm glad you said you were related to James. He's my dear friend, but you got to X him. Right. Anyway,
I got the mute button, so I got a little bit of power right now, right? I got a mute button.
Keep that muted. Keep those 3 muted. Steve Alquist is the Oracle of Truth. So, and Mike Shepard's nothing but trouble. But that's another issue. We're going to need a couple of bottles of wine for that one. But anyway, so Alex, you are so right. You need to be engaged. You're 100% right. But it's simple things. It's simple things. So. You can print off the computer, off the website, a voting registration, one in English and one in Spanish, and just keep them in your car. And you'll be surprised. You'll say, "Are you registered to vote?" And I hear it more than anything. Maybe being an attorney. Well, I spent time in prison, but you can vote. And, I'm intimidated by the process. Okay. You can vote from the comfort of your home. You can vote by mail ballot. And, we're getting rid of all the, that you need a notary, that you need 2 witnesses. So there's so many fallacies and misconceptions out there. So, and not to correct you, Alex, let's talk about Providence, for example, because, you're going to have 7 new council members and you're going to have a mayor. So the black vote is not 6%, it's 13% in the city of Providence. And in the Latino community is like 43%, which is the majority. The Irish at 13%, the Italo-Americans at 13%. And there's a group of individuals that have 1 person in the entire state, 39 cities and town, of the yellow skin, meaning, so you have about 50,000 Southeast Asians. Not 1 is elected to office. And then you go over to, off Cranston Street there, the 8th Ward, you have two temples there. There's no reason why people from the Southeast Asian community are not being motivated and, coalition, because they will have a lot to say. So Providence is a minority majority city. And there's no reason why the people in Providence shouldn't have elected officials that look like them, understand what they're about, and that's all I'm saying. But we've got to get rid of these barriers. We're trying to do it up at the State House every day with expungement clauses that fell. Like one of the bills I'm sponsoring is, even if you have 3 or 4 felonies, after you complete your sentence and 20 years after that, you'll be 40, 42, whatever, 43 years old, but you know what? You should still be able to expunge your record. Why not?
Right.
There's so many things that are common sense to me, but a lot of people just don't get it. The problem with Providence, and I'm sorry, I always talk about Providence, I get very parochial. Many people on the outskirts of the state say, Providence is nothing but Providence, but Providence is a city-state. So goes Providence, so goes the rest of the state. So we need to make sure that, we're on message with that. And I don't want to take up too much time because I can go on all night about this. I've been in this city for 68 years, it'll be 69 years. I am very passionate about it, and there's so many good things. And Alex, you're an example. Sal, you're another example. Mike Shepard's a great example. Jim Montero, you want to talk about a story? That's a story.
Man, I don't think we have enough time.
If he doesn't run for city council in the 3rd Ward, if that seat opens up, him and I are going to have a little bit of a talking, and I don't think he can take me, even though I'm an old man. So I'm saying it on the record in front of everybody. So.
Yeah, you are being recorded, so let's
That's okay. I'll tell him to his face. I don't care.
Mr. Lombardi, you brought up, thank you for that, Mr. Lombardi. You brought up a point. I just want to say something before we move on to our next thing. I was part of Leadership Rhode Island, class of 2014, best class ever, right? Kappa 2. And there is something that's called the Government Day. So they take us down to the State House, in the City Hall or whatever, and we spend a day there and we watch them go through the changing of policies and laws. So here I am, think I'm fairly educated. I think I kind of have an idea what's going on. But when I went down there that day, I realized how much laws and policies and changes are being made every minute, every second, that I had no clue about. And unless you are in that field, unless you are in that realm, you don't know what's going on. By the time I drove home to Cranston, 17 laws had changed. By the time I got home, right? And this is happening every day, right? These laws and policy changes that affect our lives on a daily basis, and we have no clue because we don't have the information. We don't know how to get the information. We're not engaged. It's not community, it's not public to the community. And that's something very important to us that affects our lives every day. Laws and policies are being changed every day. And if we're not aware, if we're not engaged, if we're not informed, we can go on. Next thing you know, who knows what's going to happen. But it's very, very, very important that this take place on a regular basis. Right? So,
amen to that.
Thank you. Okay. So, our community leaders, yes, Mr. Phil, I see you had your hand raised up. Go ahead, young man.
First, I want to affirm what everybody's saying and the importance of recognizing that you have to take power. You can't just wait for people to give it to you because they won't. And we've seen that from the U.S. Supreme Court to the laws that they're trying to make in a lot of states now to shut people out of voting. And that's the oldest part of the game, is to keep people out of power. But I want to share briefly a very inspiring story. Some people approached me in 2004 to say, look, we have to do something about this fact that Rhode Island excludes people from voting once they've been in prison. And it does it until they finish their probation and parole. And we have to work on that together. And so a bunch of us came together. Most of the leadership was from the community that was Open Doors, which was dealing with people coming out of prison. Sal Rodriguez was the head at that point. And we had this amendment that we had to get through. And Rhode Island had never done it. No other state in the country had ever approved an amendment that would restore the right to vote upon people's release from prison. And a bunch of people came together, and it was an amazing group that worked very hard at it. And when I was amazed that we got it onto the ballot the first year. But once it was there, the resistance was intense, and people were saying, like, well, if someone's committed a murder, are you going to restore their right to vote? And they had all these kinds of evasions and things like that. And we said, once you're out of prison and you've served your time, you got to be able to vote. But we recognized that the white communities in the suburbs were not going to work on this. And a bunch of people who were former prisoners who couldn't vote themselves took it upon themselves to really work block by block in the south side of Providence, where I lived at that time, in Woonsocket, in Newport, in Pawtucket, where I live now. So these former prisoners who couldn't even vote themselves were going to go to their friends and family. And on the night of the election in 2006, we thought we're going to lose this because the votes were running against us in Barrington and in Burrillville and in Westerly. But then the votes started to come in from Providence and Pawtucket and Central Falls and Woonsocket. And we won, not by a big margin, but we won. And we were the first state in the country to change that rule. Other states have followed, but we did it first in Rhode Island. And it was because people who were formerly incarcerated themselves organized and worked like really hard. And I remember the exhaustion as I saw people's faces. And people didn't think it could be done. I want to close just by saying this one thing. After what happened in Georgia, in spite of all Trump's determination to turn it all back, it was the people who came out and voted for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, the people who voted for Warnock and Ossoff, that have changed the country. And I hope that now that we have seen the power of the vote, that everybody here, as you talk to people, don't surrender to the "we can't do this, it's too hard" thing that some people say. We can do this. We have to do it. It's what the future depends on, and it's in our hands. And just remember that it was former prisoners who won that vote, even though they couldn't vote themselves, to restore the right for prisoners to be able to vote as soon as they come out of prison. So I'm really thankful for that. And don't forget that inspiration.
Thank you for that, Mr. Phil. James, I see you got your hand up, and I'm going to pivot right to you, but I put it in the chat. I could have 15 felonies on my record. But if I come out and eventually I get a job, tax-paying job, and you take taxes out of my check, I have a right to vote. I have a right to tell them what to do with my money. Regardless of my record, if I'm legally working and you're legally taking taxes, there should be no reason why I can't vote. James, I'm going to let you say what you had to say. And then I'm going to let you say what you have to say, and then I'm going to ask the first question to you also.
All right, real quick. You started off by asking what is civics. And I like to say it's one thing to be locked up in prison, but it's entirely another thing to be locked out of society. And we have seen that in the history of this country, all the way from the time of slavery to the black codes to the Jim Crow to what we have now, which is the new mass incarceration. And I want to add that it's actually, the data is 30% of people in Rhode Island have a criminal conviction. This is in New England entirety. There's more people in this country that have a criminal conviction than voted in the Obama election, meaning that if you found a way to bring this population together, you could have actually determined who the president of the United States is. And we do have the right to vote because the law states that people who are convicted of a felony lose their right to vote. But you have a bunch of people who are at the Department of Corrections sitting in intake who have been convicted of nothing yet, and they still have the right to vote. So you have around 700 to 800, whatever population that building holds, they all have the right to vote while they're incarcerated. Then on top of it, all the people who are incarcerated who are not incarcerated for a felony also have the right to vote. So don't think that because you're incarcerated or you're just confined in the Department of Corrections that you've lost the right to vote. This is not the case. The law is you have to be convicted of a felony conviction. So there's a bunch of people who are at the Department of Corrections that if we found a way to actually bring this population together, probably could decide if you said the governor won by 5%, they probably could decide who the next governor was. And then if you found a way to bring the whole population, because it's mostly Providence, Pawtucket, Central Falls, Woonsocket, and Warwick, if you found a way to bring this population together, you definitely would determine who the next governor of this state is. And I just wanted to bring them facts into this conversation. Thank you.
All right, thank you. No, stay on, James. I'm going to pivot the next question to you. The first question is to you. So with all that, what you just said, which was a lot, right? Mm. Why don't the unsheltered vote? Why don't unsheltered people vote? I mean, I know there's a lot of reasons, but coming from what do you think it is, James?
I think it's a lack of information. I think it's disenfranchisement. It's been years of not being involved in this process. I remember I forget what election it was, but I was riding around. I'm campaigning over here at Martin Luther King. My mother's over there. We're shooting down to, down Nathan Bishop, shooting all over the place. Then I had to go see my man, John Lombardi, because this is my brother. I go over South Side and check on John really quick. And I'm looking at this, and I'm like, the whole East Side shut down, literally. Like, I could have blew through every stop sign. I didn't blow through them, John. I could have blew through every stop sign, right, and wouldn't have had a problem, right? Because everything was shut down. I go over South Side, and literally, man, it looked like Broad Street was the same. It looked like nobody was involved in this process. John was over there running. John was over there fighting for his seat, and we were all sitting on Broad Street just hanging out. And this is a problem. This is a problem. The problem is we're not engaged. And when that happened, how did it happen? I mean, we can trace it all the way back, Sal. But the truth of the matter is if I would have stayed stuck in that circumstance, I'd still be sitting in a cell and lockup right now. It doesn't matter how. What matters is, what are we going to do about it now? And we know people are disenfranchised. We know people do not understand this process. How do we come together to educate and inform them and bring them into this process? So that's my 2 cents on that stuff.
Thank you, James. Ms. Wilma, same question for you. Why don't the unsheltered vote?
Well, from my perspective, and the civic leaders, they can answer this as well, but the reason why people who are unsheltered don't vote is because they don't feel like their vote makes a difference. They see things going on in their society, that if you vote on it, you go out, you vote, housing's going to get better, housing's going to improve. But in reality, it takes so long for those improvements to happen. And, when you're homeless and you're living on the streets and you're unsheltered, you need results today. You can't afford to wait 6 months to a year for the housing bill to pass through the House and through the Senate, and make its way down to the agencies that are providing the services for you. So if you don't feel like your voice is important and you don't feel like your vote is going to matter, why are you going to take time as an unsheltered individual to stand in those lines and make the difference when you don't see those differences happening to service your immediate needs? And the other thing that I wanted to comment on was the whole thing about felons voting. Those laws are outdated and they need to change. People can get felons, can be a convicted felon if they're charged with the same crime more than a certain times. So if you, for example, if you get 3 strikes on your record for something, in some cases that automatically qualifies you as being a convicted felon. But it's not necessarily that you did something worthy of being a felon. It's just how the judicial system operates. So as a society, we need to re-examine laws that were set in place years ago and try to revamp how it is, because people don't get civically engaged because they don't feel that it's important.
I just want to jump into that too. Like, we can't just expect people to vote if they don't know what they're voting for, right? Like, we need to actually get down on their level and educate them, because they're not voting because they don't know what they're voting for. And why would you vote if none of those things are impacting you? So like, I get frustrated sometimes. I'm like, oh, we need to, get these people to vote, get these homeless people to vote, get this one to do. Whoa, wait a minute. We need to educate them first before we even get to that step, because they don't know what their platforms are. They don't know, even where to begin. So I think that what you're saying is 100% true. And then we have to remember, everybody assumes the word civic engagement means voting. That's not what civic engagement is. It's a part of civic engagement. It's one of the pieces of civic engagement. But I think that we all just need to remember that we have to build community through relationships, and that is civic engagement at its finest.
Thank you for that, Alex. I want to take a little bit of the show before we go wild on here. I want to let Miss Jessica Vegas, a question for you. What can we do differently to educate the unsheltered to increase civic engagement?
I think what Wilma was alluding to was that, and I think it matters, is that words matter. The way we talk to people, the relationships we build with the community. I think sometimes as political leaders or just folks, activists in general, when we talk about like, we need to close the wealth gap. That's well and great, right? But that's like a long-term goal. If I'm someone who's living on the streets, if I'm unsheltered, if I'm a domestic violence victim, like I want to know, what are you going to do for me right now? And I think sometimes we forget to support people in their short-term goals and what their immediate survival needs are, instead of just focusing on the long term. So I think when we're talking to the folks, we need to let them know, like, what are the immediate goals that you have and how we could support you now, and what those long-term goals are, but work towards that. It can't just be looking at the pie in the sky thing. Like, yes, that's important. But again, if I'm working 2 or 3 jobs, if I can't necessarily support my family, if, you know, affordable housing crisis is happening here in our state, and you're talking to me about, and not to minimize this, but if you're talking to me about environmental justice, for example, or reproductive health care, right, that's not something I might care about at this very moment, when people don't see the impact that it's having on them. Not saying that it doesn't, but they don't see that immediate effect. So for me, when it comes to civic engagement, I'm just, shameless plug here, to me is about, when it comes to democracy, is making it tangible for people. And that's, for me, is through participatory budgeting, where you're giving people access to democracy in a way that they could see immediate results. So, for example, you're giving folks a pool of money, and for some reason in our society, we have this idea, if you give poor people money, that they're going to spend it on drugs, or they're not going to know what to do with it. They'll know exactly what to do with it, because they'll satisfy their needs, right? Those basic needs that they have. So you give folks a pool of money, and you let them do the research and decide what it is that they want to see in their community, and you let them vote on that, regardless if they were formerly incarcerated or not, regardless if they're undocumented or not. This is something that cities and states could do citywide or statewide, and this is something that I'm pushing for as council president in Central Falls. We've done it already at the school. We're starting our 2nd iteration of that in September. And I know, Steve, thank you so much for covering the election, but we saw students, like, their eyes were open to, it's not just civic engagement, like Alex said, it's about learning about, the social systems that are in our community. So for example, when I was growing up, I didn't have the language to talk about inequities. I just didn't know. I felt it. And when I got into school, I was looking at psychology, because I'm like, why do people behave the way they do? And it wasn't until I was in my sociology class that I had an aha moment. And it was like, this is what people are experiencing in my community. It's not just folks who don't want to do things, or whatever the case may be, the language that we use. It's about these systems that are all around us. It's our environment. It's looking at things from a macro perspective that we don't necessarily see, but we feel, and we just don't have the language for it because we're just too busy with our day-to-day survival.
Thank you.
The original question was, yeah.
Me too. The question was,
we needed to hear that. We needed that.
So, we'll go to Mr. Michael Shepard. What could we do differently to educate the unsheltered to increase civic engagement?
So, if I'm understanding, can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. If I'm understanding the question, when you talk about those who are unsheltered, I think first of all they need to also, as Alex said, they need to be educated, they need to be informed, but they also need to feel some sense of importance. Right. And I think when you make a person feel like they're important, then they don't mind coming to the table and they don't mind getting involved. But you also have to make it inviting. You have to make it inviting. And you have to also make the person feel, once they come to the table, that the information that you have, we need to know about so that we can take care of those areas. I work at Love and Compassion in Pawtucket, and so I deal with a lot of homeless people. And when you feel the pain that those people are experiencing, sometimes it's saying, but I have a lot of needs right now that needed to be addressed, and my needs don't seem to be important to you. So why would I now try to step to the table for you? I think we need to start learning how to give back to them also, and making things a little bit easier for them in order to pull them in to be what we want them to be, and also do things that are necessary to make these changes. And again, like, my heart goes out to them, and I see it on a daily basis, the deprivation, the brokenness. It's disturbing to me. It's really, really disturbing.
Right. It's hard to worry about voting when my basic needs haven't even been.
Well, when I'm sleeping in a tent, you want me to go vote, but I'm sleeping in a tent.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Mr. Camillo, what can legislation do differently to engage with this subpopulation? What can legislation do differently to engage with this subpopulation?
Well, I mean, one thing is, recognizing the digital divide, right? Recognizing how like a lot of services, basic services, require people to have digital access. They're not starting from where people are at. So we need to make sure that even when there's services, and when we're talking about engaging folks, we need to put more resources into social workers, into case workers, supporting grassroots groups, people that are doing the work, that have the relationships, regardless of what, if somebody has a conviction that's so I think we need to really look at and discuss and listen to organizations like this, right? Listen to grassroots groups and making sure that we're not creating barriers and ask people straight up, like what are the barriers, right, to participation? Because what we see a lot is solutions coming from a certain class of folks that think, access is easier than it is, and it isn't. We see a lot of push to like digital solutions, and even frankly, even using phone. Not everybody has phones. Like there's a lot of ignorance. So I think, I want to flip it a little bit, because I think we talk a lot about educating people who don't have homes. We talk a lot about educating, you know what I mean? Like in our communities, we got to educate folks who have the affluence, that have forgotten that not everybody has a computer. You know what I mean? Not everybody has a phone. At the George Wiley Center, 30-40% of people we talk to don't have an email. You know what I mean? We have people coming in using the computer because, they're trying to gain access at the library. They can only stay there a certain amount of time. So, digital access is a human right. We got to make sure that is that's something that we put in part and parcel in a modern society like we are in right now. But until that happens, until that's free for everybody, and people have the capacity to have it in their homes and have the smartphones, right? Like we need to make sure that there's the real people on the street in our neighborhoods, reaching out to people, going door by door, people that are trusted. You know what I mean? So I think that, that costs money. It's about having political leaders, put their money where their mouth is, right? Like these are resources. These are things I'm talking about that, like, grassroots organizations, we're shoestring operations. We try to do a lot with a little. We need to make sure that the weight of the government, the resources that we pay through our taxes, go into caring for each other. Because that is, we can talk about Trump, we can talk about elections. Elections are important, they matter. But the average person, wants to believe they care about their neighbor, right? But we need to make sure that the funding is there for social workers, grassroots organizations, for outreach, face-to-face, right? Old school. You know what I mean? Not just trying to digitize. We're not going to have a hologram of a caseworker and a healthcare worker and a mental health worker. That, we're not. It's not artificial intelligence. We're talking basic compassion, basic caring, and basic accountability to you know what I mean? And we gotta, not the legislators that are here taking time, but how many legislators are out there, going to thinking they're Martin Luther King events, right? I'm not particularly religious, but some of these questions we're talking about, right? Like old school, Matthew 25, I was hungry, You gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me nothing to drink. I was the stranger. You did not invite me in. I needed clothes and you did not clothe me. I was sick in prison and you did not look after me. Right?
Thank you for that.
We've been talking about thousands of years.
Right.
What's anyone that
I want to make Mr. Camillo. I want to make sure
happens for real is part of the problem. You know,
Mr. Camillo, you're breaking up a little bit, but thank you for that. And I want Alex. I'm going to ask you the same question, and then you can pass the question to the next civic leader. Thank you for that.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Camillo. Everything he says is just so I feel it because I go through it. But one of the biggest things for me, when I've come to this realization, we need places where you don't have to be jacked up to get help. So there's so many places here to go if you're using drugs. There's so many places here to go if you are a convicted felon. Very few if you have a sex charge. But in all, what that's saying is, oh, you don't need help if you don't have an issue. But in all reality, I had to leave Rhode Island to get help because if I wasn't using still or doing anything that wasn't legal, I couldn't get the help I needed here. So I feel like it's important that we stress that to legislation and to our governor and our mayors, and because at the end of the day, right, that's what I'm trying to create here is like this navigation system with a hub that has, shelters and transitional workforce development programs that work in unison. The problem is that I don't want people to feel like, hey, you have to be jacked up to come in my door. Also, I don't want you to feel like you have to be homeless either, because you should be able to come in and just get whatever you need anyway. I should be able to resource them to James to a reentry program, Tiara to her program, Wanda to College Unbound, Camillo for services. It should be warm, welcome handoffs and partnerships, because if this doesn't start to happen, it's just going to get worse. I mean, the same people I was homeless with 15 years ago are literally the same people who are still homeless. Nothing has changed. They go to the same places. They do the same thing, right? It's like a revolving door, because they can't even begin to think about, there's some bill at the State House that's going to help me, or why. They don't see any change in their own lives, right? Like, we're not supporting. And then the grassroots orgs, like myself, George Woolley, just a few of us, right, that are out here, James, Tiara, it's so hard. We're like fighting in this big pool of money that only people that have years of recognition are getting this stuff. But let's just keep it real. I'm not downing any other org. I'm just saying that we're the ones that are every day out here working, right? Not making a thing. So hopefully we can create some legislation in the future about, we make sure that these grassroots orgs are seated. Not only do they get seated, but they're state funded. And what that would show is the state actually wants to be supportive, right, of these unique things that aren't just controlled by a system that controls lives, every individual.
Thank you. Jessica, I see you with your hand up. I want Alex. I'm sorry, Alex. I see Jessica. I see you with your hand up, and we'll get right to you. But Jessica, I know you want to pass it to someone else, so I'm gonna let you do that. Who you want to pass it to? Alex. I'm sorry, Alex. You want to pass it to someone else for that question?
I just wanted to ask if all civic leaders could respond. Have you seen anything in the recent past, or do you have any suggestions for GTUA1 to be able to pair with the rest of these people on this call and yourselves to continue to do this work? And so, if you haven't seen anything done in the past, what do you think we could do together as a collective? And if you have seen something in the past, can you please let us know? Do you want to start, Jessica?
Thank you. I appreciate everything you said, Alex. And my 2 cents was, you're absolutely right. We disincentivize people for even trying to do well. I remember when I was 18 years old or 19, I got kicked off my mom's health insurance, and I was calling like, hey, I need help. And they were like, well, if you're not pregnant, then we can't do anything for you. And sometimes even when people are pregnant, you're still not doing anything for them. So it's like a lose-lose situation, and it shouldn't just be left to nonprofits, but it should be codified into law that people should have these rights. And I know there's this initiative or a nonprofit in Boston. It's called the Family Independence Initiative that actually incentivizes folks the higher they climb. So if I'm making if I'm getting a promotion, $1 promotion, I don't get my health care or my SNAP benefits taken away. It shouldn't be like that in our society. But as far as your most current question was, I will admit that I was ignorant to the work that you've been doing, Alex. I know of Camilo's work and what they're doing at the George Wiley Center. I'm not too familiar with your organization, but I'm always willing to listen, learn, and partner up with folks and show up whenever I'm needed. So I'm happy to support in any way.
Thank you, Ms. Jessica.
Thank you.
Phillip, about you? What are your thoughts, my brother?
Yeah, I'm just sitting here, trying to soak up all the information because, like Alex was saying, I think it was Camilo, he mentioned something, but growing up from Providence, I didn't really understand what a civic leader was, what a senator was, what they can even do for the community. A lot of my people that I grew up with didn't understand this either. And so I'm learning a lot today because I'm 26 now and I still don't understand too much of it, because growing up, I was in extreme poverty. Me and my brothers, my family, everybody around us, we thought we had to make a way for ourselves. We didn't know we had access to any help, or we didn't have anyone to lend a hand for us. And that led to me just going out there and selling drugs. And I didn't do it because I wanted money. I did it because that's how I had to eat. That's the only way I could eat. So sitting here just listening today, I'm just learning. I'm just soaking up a lot of information. I'm learning some new things. And one thing I'll definitely say is there's a lot of people that are my age today that still don't even know these things. And we need a way that we can come back and educate our communities, even if it's a program or something, because I got friends out older than me that have no clue what civic leader does or what role or position they play, and they don't really care to vote because they're living their lives day by day. They're consistently just trying to survive. They're so focused on surviving that they don't really pay attention to those things. And they don't care to pay attention to those things. They don't, because they need to eat. They need to find a way they can live. And that's definitely a big problem that's here in the community, especially for the Black community, even the minority community as a whole. And I guarantee you can go to community right now, go ask anybody what a senator is or a mayor or a councilman, what they do. And they're going to struggle to give you an answer. And that's, I'm just letting y'all know, I definitely, I learned a lot just even listening today. And I'm still learning. I'm still learning. And, I'm somebody who did come from a struggle, but I didn't get help to get out of it.
Right. Well, thank you, brother. I'm just paying attention to the time. Please feel free. We can stay on a little bit longer if you have some pressing questions and issues or comments that you want to talk about. But we're going to take the last couple, and I'm going to be a little bit, I got the mute power. So we're going to try to ask the last two people, to try to make it short. I know we can, this is so great that Alex put this on. I hope this makes us hungry for more. But we're going to go to Miss Wanda, and then we're going to go to James, and then we're going to close out with Alex. And again, if you want to stay on for a little while longer, if there's some questions that we haven't got to that you want to talk to, please throw them in the chat. We'll get to them. We'll try to answer as much as we can. But Miss Wanda, the mic is yours real quick.
So I want to say really quick after Miss Wanda, I did notice that John wanted to say something. So after Miss Wanda, just let John say something.
Okay. It's just that
after Miss Wanda, Mr. John, after Miss Wanda, we'll let you go.
Okay.
All right. I don't want Wanda to be mad at me. So, Miss Wanda.
I don't want to be mad at me either.
Well, I want to say thank you to everybody, and I echo what everybody had to say. But for me, we can deal with the unsheltered right here, right now. But the bigger problem is educating our youth and the kids in school so they don't have to become unsheltered. Like we always, start with the problem while we already in it, but the problem starts way in the beginning. We need to be educating our youth about not only civic engagement, about financial literacy, about how these systems work. The reason why we're in the position that we're in is because we don't know how to play the game. We don't know the rules of the game. You can't even get in the game. Once you learn the game, they change the rules. So we got to get ahead of this thing. We in it right now, and we have a lot of kids at the training school. We working with them to get GEDs and high school diplomas. But I suggest, while we have their undivided attention, we get in there and start to teach, right? Create that program, create a pipeline instead of prisoner pipeline, or pipelines to back out here to society with some tools that are going to benefit you, right? And the people, I'm going to say this because this is a little off, but it's important too. The census is a thing that goes up me, right? Because a lot of times the city of Cranston receives a lot of the benefits and money that the city of Central Falls, Pawtucket, Providence, and Woonsocket deserve, because you're counting people as if they live there when you know they're coming back into this community and the funds aren't given to them. So we need to address the census because it's 10 years now that they're already counted, but that gives us enough time for them to undo that.
Talk about it. From prison to politics. From prison to politics. Let's make it happen like that. All right, Mr. John, and then if time allotted, all right, James gave up because I guess you're going to talk. So, John, we'll leave you with the last comment, but we have to make this short. So, go ahead, my friend.
I mean, there's still some misconceptions. There are still some misconceptions out there. You can vote if you're a convicted felon. Let's get that straight. Even if James Montero gave a great dissertation. Listen to what he said. You can vote unless you're sentenced and incarcerated. If not, whether you're a murderer, a child molester, a thief, or whatever you are, you can vote.
We got that part, John. We know that.
No. Somebody was not clear with that. They changed it. They said about having 3 felonies. No, you can vote. You can vote. You can vote. And the other thing too is and the reason why you're going to vote, because you're going to change the leadership. Some of us have been saying that, you were talking about counting the prison. Where was the speaker from? The speaker was from Cranston. It inured to his benefit to count it. So that's why you got to be engaged. You've got to be engaged. 13% of the people the community in province is black. Only 1,100 blacks voted in the election. There's 185,000 people in Providence. Please think of that. They're not engaged. We got to get them engaged. Please, we've got to get you engaged. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Lombardi. We have a couple minutes left, so I want to turn it over to Alex, and she's going to close us out with some words of wisdom and some inspiration. And then again, if you feel like we want to stay on for a little while longer, we will accommodate you if there's some questions and concerns that we haven't got to. And please join us. We'll have another big engagement on Zoom, and that information will be coming to you soon within the email. So,
Hi, sorry about that. Nicole was asking some questions, so I wanted to respond. So first of all, I just really want to say thank you to everybody here. Every single one of you inspired me, and I'm excited to be able to do this with you guys and for the community. My hope from this event is that going further, John, we will be able to engage the community. We will be able to educate them. We will be able to enlighten them and create a space where this can happen and continue to happen. I'd like to read a poem to everybody really quick, if that's cool. It's very relevant. So the name of this poem is called Close. It is what we almost always are. Close to happiness, close to another, close to leaving, close to tears, close to God, close to losing faith, close to being done, close to saying something, or close to success, and even with the greatest sense of satisfaction, close to giving the whole thing up. Our human essence lies not in arrival, but in being almost there. We are creatures who are on our way, our journey of a series of impending, anticipated arrivals. We live by unconsciously measuring the inverse distances of our proximity, an intimacy collaborated by the vulnerability we feel in giving up our sense of separation. Human beings do not find their essence through fulfillment or through eventual arrival, but by staying close to the way they like to travel, to the way they hold the conversation between the ground on which they stand on and the horizon on which they go. What makes a rainbow beautiful is not the pot of gold that's at the end, but the arc of its journey between the here and there, between the now and then, between where we are now and where we want to go, illustrated above our unconscious heads in a primary color. We are, in effect, always close to the ultimate secret, that we are more real in our simple wish just to find a way than any destination we could ever reach. The step between not understanding that and understanding that is as close as we'll ever get to happiness. I didn't realize I was muted.
No, we heard you, Alex. We heard you. We heard you. Okay. And that was a beautiful way to... so as you can see in the chat, Jerison has put in some information about next week, civic engagement with some new people. We really hope you take the time to join us. Spread the word. Post it, chat it, snap it, DM it, whatever you want to do. Send a carrier pictures, smoke signals. Let everyone know about this. Civic engagement, everything starts with a conversation. Everything starts with a conversation. And we need to be courageous. We need to be humble. We need to be vulnerable to have these conversations because they matter. They matter. The beloved community is the goal. And within the beloved community, all are included. Unsheltered, homeless, people that vote, people that can't vote, everyone is included. So,
I also want to...
Yep, go ahead. Go ahead.
I also would like to, on the 29th, which is next week, I'm going to actually ask if Miss Tiara and Mr. Lombardi and Jessica and Phillip would like to come in. And John was going to be there regardless. I didn't ask the others, though, as well. So I'm going to privately message the civic leaders about my proposal for the 29th. I'm hoping that we're able to have an amazing solution to how we can go further to make sure that we keep this going, keep people engaged all over the state, right? Not just certain districts, but we would have our civic leaders represent their district. So I'm just really excited. I really want to thank everybody. And please don't ever hesitate to pick up the phone and ask your senator, ask your mayor a question, send them an email. You're more than welcome to email me at any time. I'm sure most of the folks here would be happy to get you engaged. If you need to volunteer, there's several organizations here that would love to have volunteers. I'm sure there's, civic leaders here that could use some help as well. So let's just keep spreading the love and building a community through relationships.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Keep your head up. Keep your spirits up. Keep your mask up. Keep your distance.
Great job, guys.
Great job. Thanks, John. Thank you, everybody.
My pleasure.
Thank you, everybody.
You heard what I said. Make sure.
I know. We'll talk. All right.